When Nicole asked me to do this talk, I agreed not really because I had an idea of what I was going to talk about really quickly, but because I've attended these talks for a long time and I wasn't going to turn down the chance to talk in front of you people. And like Ashna had the problem, I quickly realized that I had to come up with something to talk about. So I thought about the title of the series, Ideas Powered by Passion. And I thought about my passions. And the two passions that I really came up with that stood out to me were my friends and my family and music. And I thought about what these passions had in common. And the one thing that they really, really have in common is this community. All of my memories from those two passions and the people who have facilitated my enjoyment of these passions are all in this community. So I really wanted to talk a bit about what I love about the community, but also what I struggle with in the community and what I would like to see change a bit in the community. So any community is a collective of individual people, and the success or failure of any community is dependent upon the personalities, characteristics, and attributes of these people. Tonight, I want to speak a little bit about how the prevailing attitudes of the individual are shaping our community, particularly with regards to the decisions of our youth. When I talk about the prevailing attitudes, this is something that I've assembled from conversations with many different people, some of whom knew they were talking for the purpose of this speech, some of whom didn't. Don't worry, I won't mention any names. And just observations I've made in the last, 18 years I've been alive, I suppose, and living here. I'll start by telling you a little bit about me. I was born and, for the most part, raised in Sydney. I spent some time growing up in Portugal, but most of my formative years were spent here. I attended school in Sydney all through elementary, junior high, and now I had my last high school class at Sydney Academy yesterday. I'm finally done. Thank you. And I really do love this city more than anywhere in the world, and I absolutely want a future here. That being said, I do plan to attend university at Dalhousie University next year in Halifax, and this is something that we will come back to later in the talk. And I definitely have a hope that the problematic aspects of the prevalent Cape Breton attitude that I see will be changing by the time I return. And I hope that this talk, and whenever I return, I hope that I can be part of fixing this problem that I see. So to begin, I'm going to talk generally a little bit about the problems that I do see. I don't believe that we as a community, and that's as a whole, currently have an attitude that really facilitates the great potential for progress that is present in Sydney or in Cape Breton. In fact, our attitudes a lot of the time, I believe, are our main obstacle. I don't want this to come off so much as a negative thing because it's something that can be changed quite easily. And it's something that can really set us off on the path to great progress. And also, there are so many great aspects of the Cape Breton personality, the typical Cape Breton attitudes. If I had to talk about all the great ones, we'd be here for hours and hours. But there are two main problematic cornerstones, I think, of this Cape Breton attitude that I have noticed, both from the conversation and from my own observations. The first is that we really do seem to have a poor self-image. As a whole, we can be quite self-deprecating. I can't count on, I don't have enough fingers to count how many times I've been talking to people who have recently come here, whether it's on holiday or they've moved here, all of whom who have come here for a reason. And somebody has said to them, why would you move here? Why would you come to Cape Breton? Like, there's nothing here. And this question makes it very difficult for us as Cape Bretoners, as well as those who come to Cape Breton, to see the positives of this community. Cape Breton becomes a more unappealing place to us. We can't enjoy it if we're bashing it all the time. And our young people are the ones who are most affected by this. They're inheriting this more so than anyone coming here or anything like that. they are from a very young age, all the way, I can think back to grade 7, there were kids saying, I can't wait to get out of Cape Breton. And this is not because Cape Breton's a terrible place, because Cape Breton is not a terrible place. It's because they're being brought up to believe that there's nothing here for them and that they have to leave. Cape Breton is a beautiful place with so many great and unique characteristics and so much potential for progress. Many see this, many from away see this, but we ignore it. In our young people, it breeds a desire to escape and not return. The second aspect of the prevalent Cape Breton attitude that I'm going to talk about that is problematic, it directly conflicts the first one actually, and we'll come back to that as well, is a kind of combative attitude, we have an us versus them attitude, more so than anywhere I have ever been. And this is extremely detrimental to the development of our community, especially when exhibited by leaders. What it does is, because it so often comes up in conversation, we talk about our problems and we talk about the mainland or out west, like they're some big demon that we're fighting. And really we should be trying to cooperate with these places, but that's another matter. This combative attitude and the us versus them mentality, first of all, it provides very easy scapegoats. It's easy to shift the blame to the mainland. It's easy to say we can't do anything because of out west. It's always someone else. It's never us. And this is more like, I'm trying not to say names, but this is a product of our leadership, I believe. There's no solutions that can be reached with this attitude. Like, if we believe that the problems are caused by everyone else, we don't need to address these problems because it's their fault. We have to move away from this, and we have to take on the challenge that even if it is someone else's fault, it's our responsibility to fix them. Another thing that this combative nature does is it negates the desire to take risk. Easy scapegoats mean easy justification for the avoidance of risk. Risk is essential to development of any community. We need people to take risks to further our own purpose. And if we have an attitude where we're going to jump on anyone and take the first opportunity to say that someone else is the problem, then nobody's going to want to become that someone else. And that we really, I don't think that this attitude facilitates others taking risks, and it does negate our own desire to take risks. And if you don't take risks, we're going to be stuck in the same time for the rest of eternity. Another thing that this us versus them attitude does, and I'll talk much more at length about this when we get into the second part of this, is that it creates a sense of betrayal in those who do leave the island. Those who leave get the sense that they're joining the other team. And this is extremely, extremely problematic, because I believe that for some people it really makes what should be a temporary step out of Cape Breton into a decision to leave and never come back. So I've talked quite generally about those two aspects of the attitudes that many Cape Bretoners have that I think is problematic. Now I'm going to get into specifics. There's one issue that I think is probably the most talked about around here right now, and that is the issue of youth retention. And I'm going to justify those quotation marks. I'm going to do that in a minute. The combination of our self-deprecation and our combative us versus them attitude that I talked about just a minute ago, it creates a very harmful conflict in the minds of young people. We're raised to believe that there is no good reason to stay here and that as soon as you graduate, you should leave. But we're also brought up with the idea that to leave is to betray, is that we're joining the other team when we do that. And this, you can understand how problematic that is, because the only solution, if you don't fight these beliefs, is to leave and not return. So when I talk about the issue of youth retention, I think there's a fundamental problem with the way that we're framing this problem that really speaks volumes about the 2 points that I've talked about. When we talk about youth retention, we're talking about a problem of population decline, essentially. But what I believe we have is not a problem of youth retention, it's a problem of people attraction. The framing of this issue in the manner that I just talked about, as youth retention rather than people attraction, really does speak volumes of our attitudes. It's natural for youth to want to leave and gain experience, and we should encourage this. This is as true in Montreal and Toronto as it is in Cape Breton. Most kids want to experience more than what they were brought up in, and that's not something that we should make them feel bad about. The difference between Cape Breton and these cities like Toronto and Montreal, or even smaller towns that are more successful than us, is that those cities are geared towards attracting people, not retaining them. I think that it is essential that we change the way we look at this issue. I'm not saying that we should tell all of our kids to leave, because that's not productive either. Then we lose our cultural identity. But it is important that we don't that we don't make it seem as though once they leave, they're becoming the enemy. Because the cycle of coming and going is essential to the development of community. And I think that Bonnie is actually a perfect example of this, in that she left, she did the Shakespeare in the Park thing in Kingston, and now she's come back and she's implementing that idea and that passion that she gained while she was away in our community and bettering our community. This cycle is essential to the development of our community. It can and should include people who are not Cape Bretoners as well. We must attract and welcome those who are coming here to live, but weren't brought up here. We can't paint them as the enemy. It's not productive. And if we allow ourselves to change the way we look at this problem, it also allows us to approach our problems in a much more progressive and productive way. We can build a community that isn't geared towards containing youth, but towards attracting people of all kinds to raise families and pursue careers, to open new businesses, to grow Cape Breton in social, economic, every way that you can think of. If we can maintain this cycle of people coming and going and not make them feel bad about leaving and not make those coming feel bad about coming here, then we will be able to move past the problems that we have so much easier. Thank you.